have Martyna from Calder Collective. Martyna, who runs her own business designing, building and maintaining edible spaces, is working in a collective to develop a market garden. The pandemic has exposed many issues around food supply and food sovereignty, and so we're really pleased to have Martyna with us to discuss some of those issues.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Nice to see so many faces, and nice to see that so many faces are interested in the green things. And I love the green things as everybody else. I'm just going to set a timer so I don't keep talking for too long. I've prepared a small presentation, so I think I can try and share this now. My story with growing started, and I have to, with Incredible Edible. And it was purely by accident when I went to Lidl and I've seen some apples growing in the health centre that Mary was just talking about. And then I've noticed a lot of herbs, a lot of lovage, which in Poland, where I'm from, is the traditional herb to use in cooking and quite undervalued in England. I got in touch with somebody, Incredible Edible, I'm not sure even who it was at first, and I thought I'm going to give something back and I'll try and volunteer, which then led me to Incredible Aqua Garden, which is sadly not in existence anymore, but it used to be a social enterprise just at the back of Todmorden High School, where we've been teaching children about urban farming. So those of you that don't know what urban farming is, these are methods that are using soilless growing, so aquaponics, and here you can see children observing a fish tank, and all the greens, kale and chard and turmeric growing above it were grown just using fish poo. Here we've got pictures what we used in hydroponics, so that's a mineral feed through water which can produce beautiful crops. And even though this place doesn't exist anymore, I'd like to just talk a little bit about urban farming, how I feel the traditional methods of growing are really important, and it's really important to talk to the people who have been growing for years. However, there's a way of using such farming methods for places that are not so great. So traditionally it's used in hot countries where there's a lack of water. However, in Todmorden, which is probably one of the rainiest places in the UK, it was also really good because most of the time when our outdoor crops were being, there was too much water for them to thrive. Inside, it was great. So hopefully these methods will be kind of included in some future thinking for our growers. Probably everybody has seen the headlines recently: Brexit, climate change, climate problems. It seems to be a bit quieter from XR and the youth climate, youth strike. So it almost feels like the problem of food sovereignty and the climate isn't so imminent as the vaccines and everything else that they're talking about in the news, but it is a problem and we really need to think about it. We are pretty self-sufficient, and 61% doesn't mean that we produce 61% or grow 61% of our food in here. We import a lot of it from all over the world, from EU. As it happens, a lot of our imported stuff is vegetables, largely vegetables and fruits. We get them from Spain, Ireland, and I think it was France, the topmost European ones. And then we have South Africa, Costa Rica, and Morocco as other ones which we bring our fruits and vegetables from. We can grow, and we have successfully grown, and we can produce a lot of this food. The problem is our climate is getting wetter and wetter. Even today, it's just soaking wet. And in the summer, when we have a good climate, we can produce a lot more. We can produce corn, we can produce melons, we can produce tropical fruit. Down south, people even produce bananas, believe it or not. However, in winter, it looks like we don't have that much choice and we have to import our food. And this is a pack of beans, which I've bought in Todmorden Lidl a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, it came from Egypt. And it just begs a question, do we really need to import, okay, melons, maybe we can't grow here right now in January, but stuff like a lot of green vegetables, I really don't understand why we have to bring so much of it from abroad. And I wonder if any of you remember in 2018, we had a problem with lettuce, I think it was the drought, and cost lettuce, suddenly there was no lettuce on the markets. Well, luckily we had planes full of lettuce sent from New York. That's only 5,500 miles. Do we really need to do it? Can we incorporate new methods? So these are the questions that were kind of in my head for years. In Calderdale, I have to say we are really extremely lucky because we have a beautiful market. There's plenty of wonderful shops. There's plenty of producers, local producer for meat, eggs, vegetables. And I have to say, I was just in awe of all of these people during the pandemic, changing the shops around and markets and constantly applying. So thank you to all of the people who are, giving us our food. Personally, I don't love going to the supermarket. I sometimes go, but then it ends like it's just ended with my beans. And I prefer to support our local markets, and I'm really pleased that they're still open. Valley Organics and Cropshare, these are two organizations which are close to me and my heart. And together with representatives from these groups, we've started meeting last year and created this group called Calder Veg Collective, mainly because we understand that the food that we grow needs to be more localized. It needs to be grown here because of the food miles and because of the nutrient content, because of the taste. As we see, a lot of Valley Organics has increased the box scheme. However, the shop sales were down. Cropshare have also increased the taste for the vegetables. So the need is there. That's what it seems to me. As you see on this picture below, the traditional stuff that we can buy in supermarket has a really long way before it gets into our fridges. There's ways of changing it. Again, we're really lucky that we have incredible farm, lots of other local producers' farms that we can have fresher product from. So with Calder Veg Collective, we identify that we need to change something, whether it's supporting growers. So Alan Creedon, who's also part of the Veg Collective, has successfully gathered growers that support Valley Organics and supported them. And we're talking about what we grow, when we all harvest, so we don't harvest at the same time. So it's a lot about cooperation between growers and people who buy the vegetables from. Our aim, we're only a small group of 5 people at the minute, and we welcome interest from people to join, but we're really trying to grow a little bit more. We've been meeting last year in lockdown for several meetings, and one of the projects that we've started that actually is happening now is that we've reached out to customers and to local people to say, do you have any land? We've reached out to growers to say, are you a grower? Do you not have land? And one of the aims of Calder Veg Collective is to create small pockets of land that can produce some crops that can then be sold locally and kind of eaten locally. That doesn't necessarily have to have 10 or 20 acres and lots of infrastructure and so on. So this is the land that we've started work on. Currently, it's not been cultivated for about 5 years, but the history of it is beautiful because since after the war until about 5 years ago, it has been grown and as a successful market garden. It's Mulkshire Hall. This building on the bottom right, you can see is a Mulkshire Hall just in Eastwood. And at the minute, with the power of volunteer hands, as much as we can in the lockdown, we've been trying to kind of restore. We've done a couple of manure runs, and we're going to be trying to grow some vegetables which are successful in the climate that we have. The gentleman here with the white hair and the glasses is Ralph, who was growing successfully, and all of this was his success. Unfortunately, he died last year, aged 95, and he grew until he was 90. So say what you think, but when you're outside and you're growing, you can be healthy. And this is the same picture on the left-hand side back in the day when it was grown and used, and on the right-hand side is when we were measuring it. And the kid in there is called Chango, and he's our pest manager, so that's our first employee. Overall, I would just like for people to think a little bit more about what we eat and where does the food come from. Last year, I've managed to had a great idea and finish my full-time job in January, and then discovered that pandemic was coming. There was no jobs going on. So I just advertised on Hebden Bridge page to see if anybody wants to grow their own food, if anybody needs any lessons. And a lot of people actually did, contact me, whether it was for a day or two or longer sessions. And it was amazing to see how small, shady, northern-facing backyards can produce some kale, some spinach. I'm not saying that you're going to be you know, using all of your food and you'll be completely self-sufficient. But even if you just have a salad that you grew that's outside, that's better than getting it shipped from, you know, wherever it's being shipped from. And then bang on 10 minutes, so I think I'll just stop right there.
Thank you ever so much, Martyna. I think food, as you just mentioned, it's just such an important part of how we should look at our economy and connect growers and the people who are consuming the food, and just think about the whole process. And what you're doing is amazing. I'm sure people will agree, and they're probably applauding quietly at home. So thank you so much.